Okay, we're back at the shop today, and I've got some goodies. I've taken the prop shaft out of my RZR. This will be the third time. Carrier bearing, to inspect the carrier bearing, to replace the carrier bearing, and now I've got a squeak, and I'm pretty sure one of the U-joints is out. So stay tuned, because we've got some goodies to install in the RZR today. Okay, the first part of this is getting this out. One thing I'll say, if you got harnesses, you're taking the harness legs out, be careful. I haven't done it, but I've almost done it, or seen it almost happen. The harnesses can actually flip over on the battery terminal and short something out, so be real careful when you do that if you've got aftermarket harnesses with metal things hanging off of them. But this is off now, so we're going to go into the center here. I'll move the camera and get some light in there and show you what's there, and then we'll get into what we're going to put in. Okay, we're at actual step number one of the getting the drive shaft out. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Try to get a camera shot of it here. I don't know how well that's going to come through on camera, but basically we got to knock the roll pin out. And to do that, we're going to use the following tool. So this is a tool I made on one of my other videos, and basically it's just a punch tool that I actually laid down. You can buy a whole set of these that have the proper size. I'll put a link somewhere in the description to one on Amazon. But this goes in a standard air hammer, and basically you just put it on the pin. It's got a point that will center up on the brown roll pin center, and push that pin right out. I mean, this thing will just pop out. So if you're wondering how the shops get these off so easy, I'm assuming this is what they're using, because this is quick, easy, and it doesn't do any damage to the roll pin or the pinion stub. Pretty quick, huh? That's it. It's out. So if you've never taken one of these out, it's just a standard roll pin. They say not to reuse it. I've reused this one a million times. A lot of it depends on how much force goes on it taking it in and out. And as you can see, it's pretty much brand new. This little bit of flaring on this side is from driving it back in. Okay, I just wanted to mention this real quick. So this is what I use to get the carrier bearing bolts out. It's kind of at a weird angle because you're going down in the column, and you're up against stuff. So really an extension and a little metric swivel socket is ideal to get those out. And when you're putting them back in, there's a specific torque setting. These work fine as long as you're not, really off at a really long angle. You can use these to torque those back on with a 1/2 inch torque wrench. But I'm going to go ahead and pull or get the drive shaft close to getting out. It's really difficult on a lot of RZRs. A lot of times if I'm having a lot of trouble, I'll actually take the bolts out of the front diff and actually slide the front diff forward just a bit. It makes it a little bit easier to get out, and the diff's really easy to unbolt. There's 4 bolts in the front. You basically take them out from the bottom and you can slide the front diff forward. Just be sure to put a little bit of blue Loctite back on those bolts when you put them back in. Alright, just giving you a quick shot of these 2 axles, or 2 prop shafts. That's the stock versus the new Rhino. As you can see, I've got the CV. That should eliminate a lot of vibration and things like that I was seeing, and mainly that wasn't a prop alignment issue. It was this rear shaft. The U-joint's pretty wore in it. It's got a lot of slack. And it was just allowing the drive shafts to be a little offset and wobble around. But anyway, these are sealed. They look great. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these in person. This is a nice machined CV joint attached to much beefier. This is much smaller than this is. You can see the balancing tabs they've put on there. So this should last the rest of the life of the RZR, hopefully. I did get a brand new Super ATV carrier bearing. I'm not going to fool with trying to clean this one up and get it back on. The bearing does have some retaining compound you got to put on. I've got, you know, tons of that doing machine work, but I just didn't feel like breaking it loose and getting it off. If you do have to get one of those off, usually you can just heat it up a little bit. The retaining compound's not really strong, but one thing it does do, it gets very pliable when it's heated. And if you just apply a little bit of heat, they'll pop right off, other than having to press that off and press a new one on. So I'm just going to go with a new one, and I'll keep the others as spare, and I'll probably throw this bearing away and just order a new bearing and have that as a spare for someone else on the trail. But anyway, I'm going to get to throwing this in. I'm about 1 hour and 15 minutes in now. I had to unpack these drive shafts. They were still packed and wrapped in bubble wrap, nicely packaged. So thanks Super ATV for getting these to me in pristine condition. And hopefully here in another hour we'll be able to fire the RZR up and see how this works. Okay, we're into the drive shaft now. And ideally what we're going to do is we're going to take the carrier bearing. As you can see, there's already a Super ATV carrier bearing in there from the last repair. These prop shafts just take a beating. As you can see, all the junk and everything gets into this area, water, dirt, etc. So it's kind of a sensitive area on the RZR, and that's the main reason that I got what I got, which I'll be showing you here in just a few minutes. But getting this out, basically you have to build enough space to break this here. You won't be able to, I've never been able to get it to break at the back or the front. The center, basically you push one drive shaft back this way, the other one this way, and you're going to want to split it here, and I may need to take the front diff apart to or get it loose to get this out. But as you can see, it's pretty nasty. And those are the bolts right there where the light shining. I'm going to move the light out of the way, but there's a bolt there and one there, and it's at a little bit of an angle because this tunnel kind of closes in on you, and it's hard to get a straight extension or a straight socket on that bolt. Okay, just a quick update. So I've got the drive shaft loose. You can see it's dangling here. It's not attached. And basically the way I got it off was I slid that back as far as I could, popped the front off, slid the front completely off, and broke it right here in the center. And then I already took off the Super ATV carrier holder. I've got that rag over right now because there's a lot of grease there and I don't want to get it all over the place. So we've got the rear tire off, and I'm taking this clutch cover off now. If you don't have one of these for a RZR, this is a pipe clamp tool. So this one tool, I've got this socket taped on, but it basically has the correct socket. One tool, I keep this in the RZR, and I can take off the tube, the vent tube, and all of the bolts around. And the cool thing about it is it bends and flexes, so you can get into the really tight spaces. So really good trail tool, and I also use this pretty much anytime I'm taking this clutch cover off. Okay, this is probably was the hardest part for me to figure out. But this does come out from the back, and basically what you've got to do is work this joint right to about right here, where you can still clear this clutch, and then pull it through, and then go to the front and actually lift up on the front so it doesn't hang on anything and push it backwards. This drive shaft is completely free. I just wanted to give a good shot of how this thing actually comes out. Again, you have to take the tire off, and you also have to take the clutch cover off, at least on the RZR 1000S. And we're almost halfway there. So this is disassembled. Now we're going to start putting together. Next video will be the really cool stuff we're going to be putting in this thing to prevent us from having to do this again. I'm probably like 45 minutes to an hour in, and that includes like setup, finding a jack, getting tools. So this is no small thing for sure. This is probably a half-day project to do it right. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing the upgrade, is I really don't want to have to get in here again anytime in the near future. Okay, so we've got the rear drive shaft in. It was pretty tough. One tip that I can give you is there's a bolt up front. I'll show you where that's at here in a second. Take that out and make sure that when you push the drive shaft forward, at least in the 1000S, make sure the drive spline end actually goes on top of the plate. Take that one bolt out, and you can kind of work it in. You may have to tap it just a little bit. Don't tap it with anything hard. Just knock it back, because basically what you're doing is you're rubbing that bearing up against the gas tank, and you need to clear that gas tank before you can get it in. I'll show you where that bolt's at. So the bolt you want to remove is this one right here, and you want to get this shaft. It'll start riding over here. You want to ride on top of this plate till you get by and get this past the gas tank. And this is a lot easier with 2 people. What I did is I just put a little pry bar underneath to hold it up so I could do it with 1 person. But that'll save you a ton of time. Okay, so we got basically everything's not buttoned down. I did tighten that top cap. One recommendation I'll make is just take a dead blow hammer and tap on that bearing a few times to get it seated good and straight. But the way that you can tell if you've got it in there right is there won't be a seam around the top clamp. That's the Super ATV thing there. It's got the 4 bolts. But if you'll just ensure that that's clamped down good, you can go ahead and tighten that. Make sure you put your Loctite down on it and torque it. The side bolts that actually hold the carrier bearing in, they're loose right now. The best way I found to get that aligned up is basically put everything together except for the center console. And you want to let the machine roll. And I don't mean, go out and get on it real hard. I mean just either rotate, jack it up and rotate it by hand, or just drive the machine just a little bit and let it settle, and then you can tighten it up to torque. So where we're at in the process now is I just put back on the clutch cover. You can kind of still see the new part there, nice and shiny. I'm going to pop this tire back on, and it'll pretty much be time to do the alignment. So I'll do that real quick, and once I get it aligned, we'll go for a little short ride. Okay, I think we got it fixed. No more chirp chirp vibration. On my particular drive shaft, it was the rear, the furthest U-joint to the rear. Just had a little bit of slop. It was definitely dry. And on a dry day, if you were riding, the first day that I went back to Worry Hut, I heard, chirp, 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 chirp. It was like a rotational noise, and I knew what it was. This fit really well. Other than trying to get that rear shaft in, you got to really work on that to get it in. I was able to, you're probably not going to be able to see it, but down here on the console, there's a remote greaser. It's basically a hose. I installed that down there, so I no longer have to take the center console out to grease the carrier bearing. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions, drop me a comment. I do really like this. I'll probably do another review on it later after I get a couple of miles on it. But everybody that I've talked to And just looking at the fit and finish of it, I don't think I'll ever have to take that out again. It's pretty much taken at least half a day total. Eat lunch, etc., etc. So there is a big investment in time in that prop shaft area. So if you do have to mess with it, I would say if you do have to change out your carrier bearing or something goes wrong with your prop shaft, don't do what I did and keep fooling with it. Just go ahead and buy all new parts and upgrades, and you'll save yourself a lot of time and get to spend more time riding. Anyway, hope you like the videos, and we'll see you on the next one. Be sure to click subscribe and click that bell.